Welcome back to the One Another Podcast. I'm your host, Josh Squires, and joining me, as always, is my co-host, Josh Fleming. Josh, we're back.
We are, and I'm very excited to be back.
Me too.
We've got another great season coming out.
Yeah, if you were to look at the top occasions for celebration, I think you would say Christmas.
That's right. Yeah, most
Maybe
people
like a birthday.
Sure.
Podcast.
New release of the
New
One Another
season.
episode. Yeah.
I
Here
think
we go.
if you're going to take the day off,
Everyone out there is getting excited.
Yeah.
right
Make
now.
sure
This is-
your boss is okay with it. I
Sure.
think he would probably,
Get that
or she
pre-approved.
would understand.
You let them know it's we got a new season.
Yeah.
One Another's dropping.
Yeah.
Let's go.
You got to take the day off for that.
Good stuff.
Yeah. Okay. So, previous seasons, just for anybody who might be joining us new season, we did a season with our women's director, Mary
That's right.
Louise Bowers.
That's right.
Where
Talked
we
about
look-
10 sins.
10 sins, top 10 sins that we see in our ministry areas that people struggle with.
Yeah,
And then we had a summer lecture series where we
that's right.
did interviews with our lecture series speakers. And then we have just recently wrapped up season 2 with Bruce Stallings.
That's right. We did Thomas Brooks's Precious Remedies Against Satan's Devices, and that was a great study.
Great study.
Really appreciated that. The conversation was good. I was always myself benefited. You know, the only problem with that series, though,
Yeah.
is Thomas Brooks lived in the 17th century. If we want to ask him any questions, we couldn't really.
We reached out to his people.
But they never got back to us.
They never got back to us.
It was tough when you're doing a book by someone in the 17th century. It's just tough to
Yeah.
ask them questions.
Yeah.
So
So now,
we figured we'd do something a little different.
yeah, season 3, we have a returning guest.
That's right.
He's been with us before. Actually, people may not realize he's been on this podcast more than any other person
He's the original.
in the history of the One Another Podcast.
Is that right?
Yeah. Former senior minister.
I'm sure that's on his CV there.
It's
Yeah.
probably beloved brother and father, Chancellor's Professor of Systematic Theology, Dr. Derek Thomas.
Josh and Josh.
Yeah.
You should have called this program Josh Squared.
There you go.
You know?
And we'll make
Make
you
a note. Yeah. We'll make
you an honorary Josh.
honorary Josh by the end of
this season for
That's right.
joining us.
That's right. Maybe get you a T-shirt.
Oh, dear.
Honorary Josh. It's already starting off poorly.
Oh yeah. Oh man. Well, Dr. Thomas, we are so glad you've joined us. You've agreed to put up with us too for hopefully a full season. Now we will understand.
Yep.
If at some point throughout this process you get tired of us and
Just check out.
just cancel. But please bear with us.
Yeah.
And we're also very excited to discuss your book. We've spent a lot of time, as we were just saying, in our most recent seasons, talking about sin, and we always try to look at ways to help people in their sin as well. We try to look at the grace of the gospel and how that helps us in our struggle with sin. Brooks's book, Precious Remedies, was helpful for that as well. But we thought we'd take a different focus and really have a very gospel-centered season here, where we're really going deep on the good news. And luckily, our former pastor here, Dr. Thomas, has How the Gospel Brings Us All the Way Home.
Yep.
Published in 2011. Great work on Romans chapter 8. So to start off, I wonder if could you tell us how this book, how did this come around? How did you end up writing a book on Romans chapter 8?
So, in 2011, I was in Jackson, Mississippi. I was the minister of teaching at First Pres with Ligon Duncan as the senior minister. And Ligon took a sabbatical. I forget, it might have been 2009.
Okay.
If the book came out in 2011, it might have been 2010. But anyway, he took a sabbatical for 12 weeks over the summer, June, July, August. And he asked me to preach the morning services. And I thought, I need to do a series of 12 on something.
Right.
And I had been toying with writing a book on Romans 8. The best chapter in the Bible. I referred to it as that, and then later discovered that Jim Boyce, way back in the maybe 40s or 50s, had had, I don't think he'd written a book, but I think he might have preached a series of sermons
with that
called
kind of title. Yes.
The Best Chapter in the Bible.
Was this up at 10th?
At 10th,
Yes.
in Philadelphia,
Yes.
in Philly. And after the first one, there was someone who said to me at the door of the church, didn't I think that calling Romans 8 the best chapter in the Bible was a kind of denial of the inspiration of Scripture, that all Scripture is the best chapter.
Sure,
And I
yeah.
said, well, so you're in hospital. You've got 5 minutes to live. I'm coming round. I'm your minister. I'm going to read something to you. So
Right.
do you want me to read the first chapter of Chronicles, which is a bunch of names?
That's right.
Or Romans 8, and the clock is ticking.
Yeah.
So choose. I don't know why I said that. He was, as I recall, a little taken aback. Yeah. And you probably have had this experience. When you've been preaching, your emotions are kind of frayed. You're kind of spent, and sometimes you'll
Maybe be a little
where
more.
no man
yeah.
has gone before.
Yeah. I always wondered, since this was a series that was preached while Ligon was away, and the name is How the Gospel Brings Us All the Way Home, is there a subliminal message to Ligon in there? Come home. Get home.
No.
Oh, that's funny.
That's phenomenal. Okay, so last time you were on here, we talked about your journey, how you became a Christian. Incredible story. If anybody doesn't know your story about how you were converted, would recommend going back and listening to that episode. It's phenomenal. But I'm interested in your journey in becoming a writer. At what point did you know, hey, writing was something that I think I would like to do, or the Lord has gifted me to do? You've written, I think, 24 books or more. And so tell me a little bit about your journey as an author.
So, in my first charge in Belfast, in Northern Ireland, I was appointed the editor of the denominational magazine. It wasn't a big thing, and it was, by today's standards, it was a really clumsy way of you had to go to an office and give them stuff, and they would type it out, and it was just at the sort of cusp of computers. And we're talking about the late 70s.
So you're talking like word processors.
Yeah, and then I made the foolish suggestion to the presbytery that we would buy this publishing software that I could put the magazine together myself instead of paying somebody else to do it. But that just added volumes of work.
That's
but
right.
it meant that I was writing something every month, and then I put together. They were sermons originally, and then I put them together. It's not in print now, but it was a kind of living the Christian life kind of book.
Right.
A dozen chapters or so, and I had written it, and I shoved it in the drawer on my desk. And then Sinclair Ferguson came and stayed in my house. This would be the early 80s. It was after he came back from teaching at Philly, so it was maybe it was the mid 80s. I don't remember.
And you and Sinclair were friends at this point already?
Yes, we'd known each other from the time I was at seminary, and then of course this was before texting and email, so it was. You'd handwrite letters, so we'd only be in touch once a quarter, or so. But he asked me, had I written anything, and I said, well, I got this thing, and he said, give it to me. So he took it home, and then about a week later, it came back in the mail, covered in red ink. I mean,
Wow.
covered. And I said to Rosie, I was kind of deflated.
Yeah.
And I said to her, what do I do? And she said, do what he tells you to do.
It's a good wife. Good wife.
So it got published, and and I've been tinkering with something.
Yeah.
I did the academic stuff when I did my PhD, which got published, and I've written, so-called scholarly articles for other people's books.
Right.
like the RTS have produced a book on covenant theology, and
Yep.
they're about to produce one. Well, they've done one on New Testament and Old Testament, which I wasn't in, but they're about to publish by the fall a commentary on the Westminster Confession,
Oh, yes.
Wow.
which will be probably the most substantial commentary on the confession for a very, very long time.
Wow.
And designed, I mean, it's pretty scholarly. It's got
Yeah.
lots of footnotes and
Right.
commenting on theological stuff that was going on in the 17th century. Anyway, but I prefer to write, to the pew.
Sure.
And I published, almost 2 years ago now, The Life of Peter.
Yep.
And then I'm about to publish. It's in the work. I mean, I've sent it off. The Life of John, which is kind of a sequel.
Well, while you're talking about writing, because this is really interesting to me, there's a sort of a little anecdote here in the preface for this book where you talk about how as you're working on writing this book, sometimes you would be in your study and you're like struggling with, Paul's logic and argument, his wording in Romans 8, and then in the next room over, Rosemary's watching the Braves game, and she's, somebody makes an error in the field, and she's yelling at the TV screen or something. Yeah. I just wonder, could you tell us a little bit, because most of us out here, myself included, probably are never going to write a book.
Yeah.
Most of our listeners, viewers probably aren't writing a whole lot of literature. Tell us a little bit about what that process is like. I mean, you've obviously written a good bit. You're still doing it. What's the task like?
Yeah, I need. So my friend John Currid, Old Testament professor, RTS Jackson, Charlotte, now in Dallas. You know him. So he writes. I'm going to guess he writes like 45 minutes every day. So he gets up in the morning, makes some coffee, goes into his study, and just writes. But he's mostly writing commentaries.
That's right.
So it's commenting on that text. So So, but that's a discipline that I just couldn't follow. I need extended periods. So the Life of Peter was written on my sabbatical that the church gave me.
That's right.
And I was at home, and I would just lock myself in the study for 4 or 5 hours. And I'm a terrible writer in that I get carried away by, and the same is true of sermons. You'll ask a question, you think, why did I ask this question? But now I've got to do some research.
Yeah.
Right.
And it's not, it's going to be 10 seconds in the sermon.
Yep.
But I've now spent like 2.5 hours
Yeah.
going down this rabbit trail.
Yep.
Sometimes finding nothing, sometimes
my
getting more
goodness.
confused.
Right.
This is my life, Derek. This is my life. Yeah.
A PhD student
Yeah,
here. Is
it's a good
you can
thing to know
relate.
I'm not alone. And then you go back and edit, and you're like, actually, that wasn't helpful. And so,
I just delete
So
that.
I was preaching just recently on John 9, and somewhere or other I got involved in Bethsaida. I said, exactly where is Bethsaida? And then getting an atlas out that I have, Bible atlas out, and looking at it, and then chasing after, such and such happened there, and such and such happened
Right.
there,
Yeah.
and how long did it take to walk from Bethsaida to Mount of Olives, and all of a sudden 2 hours has gone by, and I've done nothing.
well, obviously not nothing, because you have produced, like I said, more than 24 volumes. I always wonder, as an author who has been that prolific and across a wide range, like you said, from scholarly chapters to entire commentaries, your commentary on Isaiah. It's okay if I say Isaiah, not Isaiah, when it's your commentary, hopefully. Incredibly helpful, to the book on just scripture on the Bible. It's a smaller, incredibly helpful book, directed, I think, at people at the pew that have questions about scripture. How do we get it? What is it? So I just wonder, is there a favorite that you have, where it was like the production of that, how I've heard other people be affected by it? That book is kind of a favorite book that I've produced, or is that like asking about a favorite child?
I'm okay with favorite children.
Just ask my children.
That was just a joke. Well, obviously, this one is probably the one that gets mentioned the most. I've written a couple of others for Ligonier, which gets mentioned, like Strength for the Weary, the second half of Isaiah, and that gets mentioned a fair amount. But I mean, you know, you're not going to make a fortune writing Christian books. It's amazing to me how few people actually read Christian books. Right. I mean, I could name names here in the church of men who are lawyers and doctors and professional businessmen and read all day long, but try and get them to read a Christian book is like pulling teeth. So the percentage of people, you know, we here in this church obviously have a thing for selling books, Christian books. So there are book tables in three different locations, at least maybe four. You know, we definitely do have an above average number of members, I think, who actually read. And then you guys, you do Bible studies and stuff with folk, and there's usually a book. It's usually around a book, which is, you know, the Foundry, for example.
Right.
So getting them to read, you know, in understanding, be men. That's a King James rendition of a text in the New Testament. I'm a reader. I love to read. I'm a very poor reader. Sinclair and I both riff off each other about how poor readers we are.
That is, well, you could not say something more shocking to me in this moment.
Who you're comparing yourselves to has got to be.
In the sense that I can't remember the last time I read a book from cover to cover. Right? I get a book and I look at the chapters and think, oh yeah, this one looks interesting. So I read that chapter and then I read the final chapter. And I think I've read the book, but actually I haven't actually read the book. So the discipline of reading, and I've just discovered, you know, software that reads the book to you. Which is great.
Speaking of which, if people want to hear this read to them,
I read it.
if you
I recorded it in some little
right over here,
down here,
that's
here in town.
So you could, if you're listening to this and you've not read or listened to How the Gospel Brings Us All the Way Home, you could go to Audible on Amazon. It's $5 or $10 or whatever it is, and you could listen to
pension money.
Pension money, and you could listen to Derek Thomas read you the book.
I've forgotten all about that.
That's so good.
And then you can come listen to him explain him reading the book.
That's great.
Yeah, I went there for several days.
Yeah, I remember.
Because if you misread it, you know,
You had to
do it all over. Not like
goodness.
this podcast.
No, there's plenty of.
If you mess something up here, they're fine.
That's par for the course.
Par for the
pal.
course.
We're making mistakes. I want to get us back to this book, and you mentioned this earlier, Romans chapter 8. It's sort of a mountaintop within the scriptures. In the preface, you write, no chapter of scripture reaches the same sustained levels or covers the same ground as Romans 8. You go on to talk about how it kind of takes us all the way through salvation. You know, there's the section on the Ordo Salutis and that sort of thing. I wonder if you could talk just for a minute about, in the history or the life of the church in general, but also maybe in your own personal life, how this chapter, Romans 8, has had an influence. Obviously, it's a very important. It's a chapter that warrants a whole book being written about it. But what are ways you've seen it in the life of the church, in your own life and ministry, have influence?
Yeah, I mean, you know, it's probably comparable to something like Ephesians 1, maybe, in that it covers a vast terrain I mean, from the issue of sin and forgiveness to glory.
Right.
Right? And the narrative of God's redemptive work in the human soul. It's a passage, I mean, it's a chapter that I can't say that I could recite it from beginning to end. Neil probably could recite it from beginning to end.
Probably so.
I know it from the King James version, which is where I sort of learned bits and pieces of it. I think, and I'm going to get controversial here, but I think that there's a default among Reformed Christians to legalism. I think that's a default because we want to emphasize that the Christian life has a certain pattern. You display the fruits of the Spirit. By this you shall know, and so on, John, and yada yada yada. And I used to tell my students, if you don't preach on 1 John in the first 10 years of a ministry, because you will sound like a legalist. So the effusion of gospel in Romans 8, I think, is the lens through which we view Exodus 20 or Deuteronomy 5, the Ten Commandments. Otherwise, it's the cart before the horse.
Right.
Always.
Yeah.
And I am so easily driven to, have I done enough?
Yep.
You were talking earlier before we were recording about New Year's resolutions, and I said that's the pattern of guilt. It's almost guaranteed to produce. But by February, you just sort of feel terrible.
There's that date. I can't remember which one date it is, but there's something that everyone quits their resolutions by, or the average.
It's salvation by works. And getting the balance right. And for me, Sinclair's lectures, which then became a book on the Marrow controversy.
The Whole Christ.
The Whole Christ.
Yeah.
Great
is
book.
such important.
Oh,
I'm so glad you mentioned that. That was what I was going to say as well, is that like the Marrow controversy really gets to the heart of this, but it can be hard up until the time that Sinclair published that book. You're going back and you're looking at the Marrow of Modern Divinity, the book itself. And we're just not used to reading that sort of conversation back and forth.
Yeah, I
style.
had copies of the lectures that he gave. 3 of them that he gave, which became the 3 chapters in the book, I think.
Yeah.
I'm sure I had. I think he gave those in the 70s or 80s, and somehow or other I got hold of the chapters, and so I had read. I had read the material, although the book has developed and expanded.
Right.
Yeah.
But it was one of those Damascus Road moments that you get every now and then, that you read something and you think, this is so right.
Yeah. And you probably already know this. I was talking to Dr. Beakey a couple of months ago, and it's those lectures are what birthed what became the denomination and the seminary that is Puritan Reformed.
Yeah.
Is that right? Wow.
Yeah. So obviously Sinclair has an influence on you as a writer. Not only the lectures, but he then sees that first manuscript and helps to mark it up. Any other big influences for you, either Puritan, past, whatever, or current, that have been influences on your writing?
Yeah, I'm not sure about how the extent of influence. I've probably read everything that Jim Packer ever wrote. He wrote in a very methodical style that publishers would not let you do today.
Yeah.
They let him do it, but he had very long sentences with several sort of subordinate clauses, and he had a way of writing where there'd be sort of 5 P's: powerful, prayer, persisting. And he did it fairly frequently. So when they came, you just, oh yeah, this is Jim Packer.
Yeah. Yeah.
I was enormously influenced right at the start of my Christian journey by Martin Lloyd-Jones. A, because he was Welsh. B, because people said he was the best preacher of the 20th century.
Yeah.
But they, meaning the Banner of Truth, were publishing a series of sermons on Romans that he delivered probably in the 50s and early 60s. But they weren't Sunday sermons, which I didn't really grasp. They were Friday night.
That's right, Friday night
sermons, and they were delivered to a very kind of special audience, not your average person. Lloyd-Jones didn't preach like this, but I thought he did.
Yeah.
Interesting.
So that style of sermonic material that only took like one verse or two verses became, for me, the sort of default credential of how reformed you were.
Wow.
And the less material you had, the more reformed you were. So if you could preach a sermon like on 3 words,
I, Paul the Apostle. That's 4. I've gone too far.
and a lot of preaching then in reformed circles was like that.
Yeah,
right.
And then I discovered Sinclair Ferguson, who took like half a chapter.
Yeah.
You know, he would take an entire pericope and preach on it. And I thought, this is so liberating. Because the material of the chapter, you know, you got more material to work with.
Right.
Do you think that's the influence of the Puritans? Like, I think of Sibbes, who delivered, I want to say 30 or 40 sermons on why, oh my soul, why you cast down within me. Right, and they seem to be able to do that.
They would just
sort
mine
of,
it. They would dig down deep to get everything they could out
for
of
one verse. That many sermons on one verse. Like,
Yeah, or, you know, Joseph Carroll, John Owen's predecessor, who preached for 23 years on the book of Job.
wow, I did not know that.
I always tell people, imagine, you know, you're a teenager, you're starting on Job, and then you go off to college and you get married and have kids, and you're empty nesters, and you go home like a quarter of a century later, and he's
Still on Job.
that's just incredible. And Joel Beakey's company have published the 12 volumes.
Wow.
4 or 5 years ago.
Wow. You mentioned Owen. Owen, I remember when I was your TA, like we would talk about Owen quite a bit. It seemed like he was an influence, and Perkins seemed like he was an influence as well.
Yes, William Perkins. Well, first of all, he probably wrote the first book on the call to the ministry. It wasn't called that, but that effectively was what it was.
Yeah.
And then on the decrees. So, remind me what I taught you. Inference, supralapsarianism.
Yeah. Inference, super.
So Perkins was a card-carrying
lapsarian
supralapsarian, which is a very hardcore
Yeah, it is.
view of divine sovereignty and divine causality. I'm getting a little technical now, but in the class, you know, most people by default were infralapsarians. So I would take Perkins's position, right, just to make sure that they understood why he was a card-carrying supralapsarian.
Yeah.
But John Owen influenced me for a while, mainly because when I was a student at university, I lived with Jeff Thomas, the minister at Alfred Place Baptist Church in Aberystwyth. And he thought it would be good to get up at like 5 a.m. and read back and forth to each other some John Owen. And we read volume 7 on the duty of spiritual mindedness. Now, I'm not a morning person. I'm not a morning person now. I wasn't a morning person then.
Wow.
So he made this very strong coffee, and I still have the volume. I still have the notes that I wrote
That's
in the
incredible.
margin.
Wow.
Y'all would just read Owen.
Read Owen.
That'll wake you up in the morning, right?
And then, of course, the section on the mortification of sin in Volume 6, which has been published as a little book of its own, became the sort of, okay, if you want to be reformed, you've got to read John Owen's On the Mortification of Sin. And there was a very famous Scottish lecturer at New College in Edinburgh, who would tell his students whenever they were studying Owen on mortification, prepare for the knife. Yeah, I mean, they were kind of definitive moments. And then I kind of transitioned to Calvin because of another book that was published, and I got I went down a rabbit trail, which led me to doctoral. We won't talk about that. It's my favorite
PTSD right here. Yeah.
Yeah. And Bunyan's in there somewhere.
Bunyan.
It's got to be there.
Yeah, Bunyan, because for my 21st birthday, the flatmate, my wife's, she wasn't my wife then, but my wife's flatmate, Jane, gave me a leather-bound copy of Bunyan's Pilgrim's Progress, which I had not read. And so I read it and completely fell in love with it. Yeah, so I've done a sort of video series on Pilgrim's Progress with Ligonier Ministries that I keep bumping into people. These video series are useful for smaller churches where they don't have as many staff and well-trained elders to sort of teach Sunday school classes. So they use these things a lot. So I keep bumping into people and they say, oh, we're watching you on
Bunyan.
on Bunyan.
And if you want to hear more about that or on Bunyan himself, go find our summer lecture series.
Oh, that's right. You did Bunyan in the summer.
You talked about Bunyan.
Well, I've got one more question, Dr. Thomas, and then we probably need to wrap up. We want to be respectful of your time. But we're going to be, obviously, Lord willing, spending quite a bit of time in your book, How the Gospel Brings Us All the Way Home, also in Romans chapter 8. What advice or encouragement would you give to someone who maybe they've read Romans 8, they're familiar with it, but they haven't spent a lot of time, really digging into it, but they want to follow along with us this season? What would you? Is there any encouragement to them, or here's a pointer to help you dig into Romans 8, or is it just read the book and follow us along with us?
I think if you can, and the older you get, the more difficult it gets. But you should try and memorize as much of it as you can.
It rewards that, right? This is one of those chapters that really.
Yeah, it definitely does. And especially for me, Romans 8:28, you can overuse it.
Right.
It's not the first text you use when somebody's in trouble. So you can definitely misuse Romans 8:28. But for me, what gives me serenity and calm and peace of mind in the midst of whatever is going on is I live under the dome of Romans 8:28, that God works all things together for the good of those who love him. All things.
All.
So a totality of divine providence that no matter what happens, God is there. He's in control.
You may or may not know this, but Guy Waters, who taught me the letters of Paul when in seminary, you worked with Dr. Waters for years. He made us memorize Romans 8.
There you go.
Now, it's been 12, 13, 14 years.
For those of you watching or listening, if you want to hear Josh recite this by heart at some point during the series, comment and we'll.
That'd be cool.
We'll have that as one of our episodes this season.
It's a good thing that no one watches this or comments.
No, don't say that.
But I will say, and it's been 12 years. It's dusty, cobwebs are back there, but those are the verses that come quickly for me when I'm languishing. When I remember when I had COVID and it hit hard, and I'm a diabetic and I have lung disease and all this stuff, and so it got kind of sketchy for a couple of days. Romans 8. Romans 8 is often I didn't have the energy to do a bunch of reading or anything. And it was just those verses
That's right.
that I had memorized years ago. And because Romans 8, there's such a breadth, and almost every single section in that is comforting in some new way. It's a grand, comforting chapter. That's where my mind would go, and it was so helpful. And so I would encourage people to, like, if you can and you have the time, try to memorize Romans 8 as you follow along with us.
And of course, pick up your copy of How the Gospel Brings Us All the Way Home.
That's right. For those that are here locally, we'll try to get in.
We'll have them in the bookstore.
Yeah, in the bookstore, in one of the many book tables. That,
That's right.
that
The aforementioned
book tables. Well, thanks for hanging out with us. I'm really looking forward to this season and
gonna
us
be great.
making it through
Yes.
Romans 8. Derek, thank you again for being here. Really looking forward to our time together through the rest of the season. Thank you for listening and for watching. You can follow us on Instagram. You can subscribe on YouTube. You can comment, you can like, all of those things help us to get this message out further. The more you interact with us, the more the algorithm, whatever that is, continues to distribute this further and wider. So we appreciate all of your engagement. If you want to reach us directly, you can email us 1a@firstprescolumbia.org. That's 1a@firstprescolumbia.org. We'd love to hear from you. For Josh Fleming and Dr. Derek Thomas, I'm Josh Squires. Thanks for joining us, and until next time, God bless.